This morning we like to open together Matthew chapter 2. We have just sang the song of the wise men traveling from the east. And this morning we'd like to share from this story. Matthew chapter 2, starting from verse 1. Now after Jesus was born in Bethlehem of Judea in the days of Herod the king, behold, wise men from the east came to Jerusalem, saying, "Where is he who has been born King of the Jews? For we have seen his star in the east, and have come to worship him." When Herod the king heard this, he was troubled, and all Jerusalem with him. And when he had gathered all the chief priests and scribes of the people together, he inquired of them where the Christ was to be born. So they said to him, "In Bethlehem of Judea. For thus it is written by the prophet, 'But you, Bethlehem, in the land of Judah, are not the least among the rulers of Judah. For out of you shall come a ruler who will shepherd my people Israel.' Then Herod, when he had secretly called the wise men, determined from them what time the star appeared. He sent them to Bethlehem and said, 'Go and search carefully for the young child, and when you have found him, bring back word to me, that I may come and worship him also.' When they heard the king, they departed, and behold, the star which they had seen in the east went before them till it came and stood over where the young child was. When they saw the star, they rejoiced with exceedingly great joy. And when they had come into the house, they saw the young child with Mary his mother, and fell down and worshipped him. And when they had opened their treasures, they presented gifts to him, gold, frankincense, and myrrh. And being divinely warned in a dream that they should not return to Herod, they departed for their own country another way." So that's the story I'd like to share with you this morning. Now, I always wondered, where on earth did these wise men find out about this Messiah or his star? And I've done a bit of research, and most of the Bible scholars suggest that perhaps from the exile, the Jewish exile in 582 BC, when the Jewish people were taken to Babylon, all the temple treasures and the scrolls were taken together with the exiles, with the captives. And perhaps those scrolls has been passed down from generation to generation among the historians of Babylon and to Persia. And they suggest that these people, these wise men from the east, came from Persia, because the word that they use for wise men here is magi, and they suggest that perhaps they came from Persia. And yeah, of course, we know those people who lived in exile, the faithful people like Daniel, Shadrach, and Meshach, and Abednego, who lived in the Babylonian age, and to the next generation, to Daniel for sure. And Ezra and Nehemiah are those who proclaimed the word of God too while they were in exile. So perhaps those people, those magi were really like historians, like scientists and astrologers who studied the stars, and perhaps that's how they got these scrolls handed down and found out about these Messiah. But this story is so intriguing and really interesting. Because you have to ask the question, why on earth would you want to see a king or a Messiah from another country? You have to ask this question. And in this case, it's a king of a loser. The Jewish nation lost the battle from the Babylonians, and they were captives to the Babylonians, and the Persians took over too, and they lived as slaves in those countries, peasants, low people. And this is a Messiah or the king who appeared to these losers who lost the war, who were exiles. Interesting, isn't it? Why on earth would you want to go worship someone who come from this enemy country, who lost lost the battle. Now, a very, very interesting story. And these guys say that, we saw his star while they were in the east. And they make this bold move. It's not like a little travel. It's not like going from Bega to Tathra, but this is like going to Bega to Gold Coast on foot, because the Persian capital city is Susa. And from Susa to Jerusalem is about 1,300 kilometers apart by foot. So it's a long journey, and this is the days when they don't have bitumen roads. This is the days when you have to climb up the hill, down the hill, go down the valley and rocky roads and the sandy roads. And they suggest that these people traveled, 16 kilometers, maximum a day because of the road condition. And because they don't have nice shoes like we do. And their feet will start hurting too, and the animals get really tired too. So they suggest that when these guys traveled, probably 16 kilometers was maximum a day, and they'll stop. A big sacrifice to make. Why on earth would you like to meet someone who is from an enemy country that lost to them, and to go see this king? You have to ask that question, question number one. And question number two is, why on earth would you like to make such sacrifice? If you like traveling overseas, I know that, I'm sure that you know that it costs a lot of money, different currencies. And, it costs a few grand easily just for, going for a few weeks. Well, these guys too, coming from a foreign country, traveling to different places, people in each land have different value for different things. So I'm sure that it cost them a lot of money. And I could imagine if they had families too, they're like, please don't go, honey. Do you like your job more than us? Please don't go. Because I'm sure that these guys will be spending a lot of savings that they had from their bank account for this trip, simply because they saw this star in the sky, and it's the star of the king, the enemy country that lost to us. Isn't it interesting? And so they decide to travel, and you know what? This is a suicide mission. Perhaps they're not even allowed to speak to their government too, because you're going to see a king and worship them and give them offering to a king from another country. So it must be a secret mission too. And if you get found out, perhaps you'll get treated like a traitor too. So perhaps it's a secret mission too, a suicide mission, because you're carrying these treasures with you. And back in those days, there's no highway patrol and police and these things too. So there's robbers hiding everywhere. You could get robbed anytime. You could lose your life. So why would you risk all these things to go see this king? You have to ask these questions. 1,300 kilometers on foot. So they started traveling with bearing treasure. I'm sure that the wives and the children begged them, please don't go, but they still went to see the king, the Messiah. And these guys traveled, and it tells us here, it gives us an indication that these guys traveled a long time. Let's go to the Bible here. Here, verse 7, it says, Then Herod, when he had secretly called the wise men, determined from them what time the star appeared. Herod asks, when did you see the star? And finds out in verse, let's go to verse 16. Verse 16 in chapter 2, Then Herod, when he saw that he was deceived by the wise men, was exceedingly angry, and he sent forth to put to death all the male children who were in Bethlehem in all its districts, from 2 years old and under, according to the time which he had determined from the wise men. So these wise men, when they came to Jerusalem, it's been 2 years since they saw the star. Does it suggest to you that they traveled for 2 years? Well, perhaps they studied for a bit, making sure that, we have seen the star, and perhaps they organized the trip. But would it take 2 years? No, perhaps not. They probably organized the trip for, let's be generous, and they organized the trip, they studied the star again and again, went to the scriptures from these olden days, and they decided after half a year, so okay, let's go. They started traveling. And it's quite generous to say, it's quite reasonable to say that it took them about 1.5 years to travel, considering the culture that they used to live. Well, if they go 16 kilometers a day every year, for 1,300 kilometers from Susa to Jerusalem, it will take about 3 months and a bit to get to Jerusalem. But I assume that they won't be going, every day, considering the culture back in those days. Back in those days, when the travelers come along to a city or a town, or even the tents, the Bedouins live in the wilderness. When these people see travelers, they'll always invite them over. Usually the elders in the town or the city will stand at the city gates, and if they see any travelers, they'll say, "Come to my house." It's really exciting to get travelers to your house back in those days, because it's the days when you don't have newspapers. It's the days when you don't have internet, and it's the days you don't have TV. So the only opportunity to hear something different outside the city and something exciting to hear is from the travelers. So oftentimes they'll invite the travelers to their house. Those rich people, the elders of the city, or the Bedouins will invite them and say, come have some food. Stay with us for a week or so. Have our food and tell us your story. What's happening? So if these guys stop by all the time, it's quite reasonable that their trip took 1.5 years. Let's say half a year of studying the star and preparing for the trip, and 1.5 years to get to Jerusalem. Long time apart from the family. And another interesting thing here that we can discover from this story is over here in verse 8. And verse 9, and he sent them to Bethlehem and said, "Go and search carefully for the child, and when you have found him, bring back word to me that I may come and worship him also." When they heard the king, they departed, and behold, the star which they had seen in the east went before them, till it came and stood over where the young child was. When they saw the star, they rejoiced with exceedingly great joy. Why would they rejoice so much when they see the star? We tend to think that these guys were led by the star all the way from the east to Jerusalem, but when we read it carefully here, it seems like they only saw the star while they were in the east. It says here, they saw the star in the east. But it seems like once they left their country, they haven't seen the star all the way until they came to Jerusalem and told Herod. And after that, when they left the palace, they see the star and they rejoice. They see the same star they saw in the east. So it kind of suggests that they haven't seen the star for this 2 years while they're traveling, 1.5 years, let's say. I'm sure that this journey was a journey of faith. If they haven't seen the star while they were traveling, I'm sure that the tempter came along and said, Satan will come along and discourage them. Hey, are you sure? You sure you want to do this? Look how much you wasted already. How about the robbers? The robbers might come and rob you anytime. Look, you haven't seen any star for a long time since you left the city, left your country. Are you sure you want to do this? What kept these wise men going? And this is where my imagination occurs. As these guys stop by each tent and each cities and towns, these people will ask, tell us about your story. Why are you traveling? And these guys share the news. Oh, it's because we have seen the star of the Messiah while we were in our country. This is it. We have studied the scriptures and we have seen the star. That's why we're going. And I'm sure that, even though they haven't seen the star for 1.5 years in the sky, as they share this good news with the people every time they stopped, I'm sure that burnt their faith. They got pumped up even more. They were convinced, even though Satan will come along and discourage them, are you sure you want to do this? As they shared more, their faith will be pumped. I'm convinced. I'm going to get going. And finally, they reach to Jerusalem, and they're like, yes, we made it. They were expecting that all the people in Jerusalem will be having party because the newborn king, the Messiah, was born. But when they get to Jerusalem, there's no party happening. And when they ask the people in Jerusalem, hey, how's the new king that was born for you? Like, what? We haven't heard any news from the palace. There's no king born. Now, what kind of discouragement they would have received, you reckon? Like, what? No king? And, they're so discouraged, but by the, leap of faith, they go to the palace and ask the king. We have seen his star in the east. There must be a new king in this land. Is there a new king? And the Herod says, oh, new king. I'm the only king in this country. But he'll inquire to the scholars and say, is there going to be a new king? And the scholars say, oh, in Bethlehem, there's going to be a new king. I'm sure that these guys were so discouraged. No one knew. Even the palace didn't know about it. And they had to go search the scripture, and they found out that the new king is going to be born in Bethlehem. So they're so discouraged, and the tempter, I'm sure that Satan came along straight away and said, see, I told ya, there's no king. This was a waste of time. Look at all the money you wasted this travel. You sacrificed your family, this and that. But by the last leap of faith, they decide to go to Bethlehem. And once they left the palace and starting heading towards Bethlehem, they saw the star again. Bam! That's why they're so excited, saying, yes! They rejoiced with exceedingly great joy. That's why it uses this great term. They're so excited. They have seen the star again. It was all worth it. Let's sing Go Tell It on Mountain. Let's sing Go Tell It on Mountain. message continues on. If you thought it was going to finish, you're going to stay here for another hour. Yeah, so these guys, when they got to Bethlehem, they saw the new king, and they're like, yes. I'm sure that Miriam, Joseph were like, what? These guys, these Easterners come to the house, and, when they see the child, they're like, thank you, thank you, thank you. I'm sure that these guys are thanking him and worshiping him and giving all these treasures. And I'm sure that Joseph is scratching their head. But these guys, when they saw the new King Jesus Christ, a toddler, probably Jonathan's age or a little bit smaller, Amber's age, they're saying, thank you, thank you. It was all worth it. This travel was worth it. This travel was worth it. As they saw the new King Jesus Christ, a little babe, a little toddler, they have seen the greatest sacrifice. Their sacrifice they made was nothing. They saw the greatest sacrifice that was made in this new babe, a toddler that came to this earth. And you know what? We want to finish with this application of this story. We are really like these magi's from the East because you live in the East Coast. You don't live in the West, which is a good thing. No, just kidding. We are really like the wise men from the East, considering our Christian journey. This is where application comes of this story. We have seen the star too. Through the scriptures, we know that Jesus Christ was born 2,000 years ago. And that birth of Jesus Christ, for us, it's like the star. In fact, interestingly, Jesus calls himself in Revelation chapter 22, verse 16, that he is the bright and morning star. He calls himself, I'm the bright and morning star. When Jesus was born, we know that he was born by the scriptures, and by faith we know that he was here on earth. That's like the star that the Magi saw in the east. But the Magi didn't see the star for 1.5 years again while they were journeying through the mountains, through the valleys, through the rocky roads and the sand. They didn't see the star. Now, for us, it's pretty similar as Christians. We know that 2,000 years ago, the star appeared, Jesus Christ, the bright and morning star, and he was born. But after he ascended to heaven, no one has seen him for 2,000 years now. It's been 2,000 years. And we're having this faith journey without seeing the star, just like the Magi's. Only by faith we're going. And the tempter will come along, say, what's the point coming to church every Sabbath? What a waste of time. Why do you give offerings and tithes? You could have kept it for yourself and indulge yourself. And buy the things you want to buy. It's a waste of time. Satan will come along and discourage our faith. See, he'll use other people to mock your faith. There's no signs. You've been saying for 2,000 years Jesus is coming back, but see, nothing happened. As Apostle Peter warned us in his epistle. In the last days, scoffers will come and start saying, where is the coming of Christ? We've been scoffed, we've been mocked in our spiritual journey, faith journey, because we haven't seen the star for 2,000 years, just like the Magi's never saw the star for 1.5 years at least since they left their country. But if the Magi's kept going, even though the tempter comes and discourages them, and as I said, my imagination kicks in. The only thing that kept their faith going and kept going for this journey is perhaps because they kept sharing. Every town, every tent and every city they stopped, the people ask, tell us your story, and they tell the story. We have studied the scriptures and we have seen his star when we were back in our eastern country. That's why we're going. Perhaps that's the key for us Christians too. If we don't share the gift of Jesus Christ, our faith will die, I tell you. Our faith will die. But if we continue to share, even in discouraging time, we might have to go through hardships. We might have to go through those rocky and sandy roads in our spiritual journey, our faith journey. But if we continue to share the gift of Jesus Christ, that we have seen the star. He has come 2,000 years ago. He was born and he lived on this earth and he died for us and now resurrected and lives in heaven, and he's going to come back one day. If we keep sharing that, our faith will burn and say, yes. We'll be encouraged, even though the tempter will come. It's a waste of time. We'll say, no, I believe in this. That's why I share. I tell the story of Jesus. Our journey is just like that journey of the Magi's. In Matthew chapter 24, verse 14, one of the signs of the time before Jesus appears as a glorious king, Jesus says, "And this gospel of the kingdom will be preached in all the world as a witness to all the nations, and then the end will come and he will come back again to this earth as a glorious king." So the key here is that continue to share the kingdom, the great news, the gospel, and the great gift of Jesus Christ. Just like the Magi did as they traveled to Jerusalem. For our journey as Christians, we ought to share this good news with people. Then the end will come. Then we'll see the King of Glory one day coming down with the angels. This afternoon, one young brave soul, Meg Isabella Hawkin, is getting baptized. She has chosen to join the journey of the Magi. She has chosen to join that journey, even though it might be a great sacrifice, even though it might be a rocky and sandy road. She has chosen to go on that road to see the King because she has seen the star. And I pray that as we witness that new birth of a Christian, pray that this will prompt us also, who has been Christians for decades. Pray that it will encourage us also and recommit ourselves, saying that we have seen the bright and morning star 2,000 years ago, and he's coming back again. That's why I'm going to recommit my life. And I pray that as we go into this festive season of Christmas too, let us remember about this greatest gift that was given to humanity, Jesus Christ. And let us not just keep it to ourselves, but share it, because we are on this faith journey. And until we see the glorious King, let's keep going on this journey of faith. May God bless you.